Hello and welcome back to the third episode of our Build-Along Series, where we're going to create a complete game from start to finish. And in this video, we'll be covering level 1. So we did the introduction, covered the concept, the core concept of the game. We did the tutorial level in the last video where we just introduced the player to the story of the game. We introduced them to one of the mechanics that they'll find in the game, and well, a couple of the mechanics, the core mechanic and the puzzle mechanic, right, to get through the door. And so now they're on level 1. Now this level is not any bigger than the last level, and it's really not that much difficult than the last level either. And I did that by design on purpose, because we're not trying to ramp up the difficulty too quickly. We want to introduce core concepts first, and then we can start playing with those concepts a little bit and devise different ways to use the same behaviors in multiple ways, so that it adds a little variety and the player learns along with the game about how the game is structured and what the behaviors can do. We'll be challenging them along the way to make sure that they're understanding, the mechanics and can kind of think outside of the box on some of that. And I'll show you what I have in mind in future episodes. But for right now, let's just focus on the design of this level. So again, 10 by 10, we already talked about that. Now, I also did something kind of different to this, where I raised it up by one block, right? So if you're not familiar with this asset, this is the block out assets that Craven 3D contributed over a year ago now. And he put it into the Discord in the share. If you were to type in block out, I'm sure you'll find it very quickly. I'll try to leave a link to it if I can. But there's also a full set of these on the Game Creator Store website that includes even more assets. So in other words, the starter kit is just limited to a few of these kind of assets. In fact, I think I have them favorited because I use them quite a lot to do some testing. So you get a few things to get you started. There's a whole lot more in the full set, which is really cheap. I think it's like $2. So we're not going to be using that set. We're just going to be using the block from the free set, this full block here, and lifting the level up. So check that out, and be sure to leave a comment in below thanking Craven for contributing those assets to the community. I thought that was really nice. You could also, if you really wanted to, you couldn't find those or just didn't want to bother with it, you could also just put a wall down and add the floor according to that wall. Same difference. This just makes it a little easier because you can lay the floor directly on top of it and start from there. So lifted the level up, and the whole reason for that is really for this illusion. So we have a set of stairs leading down. Now, I don't plan to allow my player to go backwards into the level before. I want them to progress forward. You might choose to do something different, and so the reason that I decided to do this was so that you'd have that option. You lift the level up, give them a set of stairs to go back down, and then of course there would be a teleporter to take them to the next, to the previous level, if that's the way you want to do it. In my case, what I did was I put a wall here, and I added the hidden behavior. And just to recap on the hidden behavior, we've covered this before in previous tutorials, but you just give it the wall a name, and then reference that name here in the object name field, and then the collision mode is on. So when they collide with this hidden wall, it's going to stop them from progressing. And then the nav-ish block really doesn't matter in this case. It's on, but it doesn't make a difference because there's no enemies trying to get to you in this case. But the way that would look from the player's perspective, I always click save before I click run. See, so the wall's invisible and they think, oh, I can go back down, but no. And so obviously the level is going to be pitch black dark. They'll have their flashlight. So you might want to add a little bit more to this in terms of maybe trying to black out one of those walls so that it looks like a corner or something that you could, just add to the effect or the illusion. But in my case, like I said, I don't want them to be able to go back down the way they came, so that's just there for looks. All right, so I'm going to back up a step here and just kind of let the camera look at the maze, because I know some of you are trying to follow along step by step, and if you want to duplicate the layout that I have here, feel free to do so. You don't have to. It's not required for this. You can, kind of build your own maze and design it any way you see fit. And we talked about how to do that in the last video, so I didn't bother stepping through that again. I just went ahead and made the level. You can also see that I've gone through and kind of decorated. That too, I think, is really best left to you to do for yourself. Primarily because, really it's just drag an asset in. It's that simple. It's not hard. It's mostly just your own preference and style and the assets that you have available to work with. I'm limiting myself to just stock assets, but it doesn't mean you have to. You can use whatever you have available. So yours might look a whole lot different and a whole lot better. So just go nuts and make it look nice. Just, play around with concepts and try to vary things up a little bit. You can see, like, I added some trash piles in. I added like a broken crate. You don't want to repeat the elements too much for two reasons. One, you don't want it to become boring or repetitive, but then also you don't want to give them too many clues about where they are, because these could be used as landmarks essentially to determine where you are in the maze. So be aware of that. You want to try to make things pretty much look same, for the most part, so that they can get confused. We're definitely trying to confuse the player, and we're trying to disorient the player. So keep that in mind when you're decorating, but otherwise go nuts. All right, so that all said, I want to talk about the mechanic that I introduced in this level. And again, this level is really not that much more difficult than the previous level. It's actually a very similar concept. We taught the player that if they listen, they can hear things happening in the maze. That was the first lesson. So the next lesson is basically look around, right? Because in our last video, the switch was on the wall very close to the door, and so this time they're going to come across this locked door, and it's not going to tell them anything about how to open the door. And so they've got to figure out, okay, how do I open this door? And so that's going to teach them to look around. Now, if they look around, they're going to see that there's a battery right here, so that might help them out. And if they go around here, this is a really long path that's twisty and turny and windy. I'm trying to waste their time a little bit. But here you can see I've put a little floor switch. Now, this floor switch is really just the basement collection column wall. Let's see if I can find it real quick. This one here, gray brick column, right? So I drug that in just like that. And then in my case, what I did was I took that and supersized it. Went up to 200. Oops. Yeah, 200. That's correct. Okay. And then, let's see, I think it was like minus 94. There we go. And so sunk it down. So now it's really just a little bit above the floor. It's kind of sticking out. So that's a pressure plate. When the player steps on it, it's going to trigger it like a switch. So let's look at the mechanic really quick. All right, so I'm not giving them any prompt text because honestly, I want them to explore. I want them to experiment. So I'm hoping they'll step on this switch. And if they do get rewarded with some text that says you have activated the switch. And they will hear the door open in the distance. So, and hopefully they've seen that door prior to finding the switch. Maybe not. Maybe they find the switch first, they hear the door, and now they've got to go look for what that was. Either way, it works fine. This obviously is logic linked to that door. So that'll activate that door and open it. We'll get to the door here in just a moment. The activation weight is 50. Now this is really important because we can designate how much does the player weigh here. So obviously you want the player to weigh more than what's required for the switch. And this will come in play later on when we do later videos. We'll be using the weight of the player. We'll be using weight switches some more. I don't want to spoil anything, but I've got some ideas in mind. So just for right now, understand that obviously this number has to be bigger than that number, otherwise you're not going to open that door. The movement is just how far does the switch depress when you step on it. Honestly, in this game, it practically doesn't matter because you're going to barely see it anyways. And then I've got the stone switch sound on the switch, so you can find that. I'm pretty sure that's a stock asset. You can usually tell because they're well named like this. So just look for stone switch or use whatever sound you want. It doesn't matter. I did use a special sound for the battery right here, and I will leave a link in the description for the sound that I'm using here. I just liked it. It's kind of a subtle beep, but I wanted to have some sort of audio feedback for when I collect the battery, so I added that. And I'll go back in the tutorial video and add it to that battery as well and try to stay consistent. But links in the description if you need that. All right, so now the door. Now the door is a door rotate multi. So first of all, the door itself I found in the industrial collection right here. Maybe it's under industrial. I forget where exactly. I probably just scrolled through and came across it. So if we scroll through here, yep, there it is. So for whatever reason, there's a jail door frame and jail cell door in the industrial collection. So I don't know why, but I got lucky there. I was like, okay, I'll use that. Now that door, I think, has door rotate, the behavior door rotate on it, but that's not going to work in this case because we want to activate it with a switch. So we need door rotate multi, and that's going to give us the additional option to activate this door with a switch. So we want that one. I'm not going to give them any prompt text because, again, I don't want to give them a clue. I want them to search around. So if they come across this door before they come across the switch, I want them to be intrigued and confused and be forced to look around. The rotation style is, in my case, is left. So it's just going to open forward into the left there, which is the way I want it to go. Rotation speed, again, just play with it and decide what you want to do for speed. I left mine default. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory, I think. And we covered doors in previous videos, so I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs. I think you get the idea of a door. So when I step on the switch, that's going to open the door, and that's going to lead us out to the exit. Now I played with them a little bit more here by kind of just confusing them a little bit. So they come through the door, and there's a dead end here, and then they come around and they think maybe they're getting to a dead end, and then they come to the stairs. So it's just a little anxiety, I guess, introducing to them, making them think maybe this is a dead end too or something. So play around with those concepts, trick your player a little bit in a friendly way, but trick them, try to confuse them, challenge them, because that's the whole point of games, is to essentially put together a challenge and see if your player can beat it. So that's the goal of a good game developer. Trying to think if there was anything else that we needed to cover. This video is going to be much shorter than the first one and much simpler, but don't worry, because I do have much more challenging concepts in mind for later levels. It's just that we're in the early stages. It's all pretty basic for now. I actually do have a question for you, and I'm going to leave that question in the community section. So look out for that. It's going to be basically a poll. And the question is, should we do traps? I've been kind of considering the idea of using traps. Right now, technically, there's nothing that harms the player. It's just about, can they get through the maze before the battery runs out? But then I thought, well, we could add to the difficulty a little bit by introducing traps along the way and hurting the player. So now there's two different ways you can lose. You can either run out of battery life, or you could just die because you stepped on a spike or got hit with a flame or something like that. So makes things a little more complicated, but I also feel like it makes it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to let you guys make that decision for us because it's our game, not mine. So I'm counting on you for that feedback. Please be sure to vote in that. I'm not going to leave that poll, up for long before the next video. So be sure to take advantage of that while you can. But that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click the like button down below. If you're new here or if you just haven't subscribed yet, would love to have you stick around. Please be sure to subscribe. And if you'd like a notification for when the next video is posted, just click the bell icon. That'll let you know when the new video is ready. Other than that, thank you so much for watching all the way through, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.